This morning we have been woken up by the news that Iran has been attacked by the United States. This is following on from the attacks by the Zionist state against Iran, and I've been anti-war from the very beginning. And the reason for this is because of the larger picture, the bigger picture, and that's what I want to talk about today. The first thing I want to highlight is ignore the fog of war, the narratives, and all of these images that are coming out, and pause for a second and look at the globe and think about, where does this conflict fit in the larger scheme of things? Now, in the world today, we are in a different state to what we were in 2003 during the Iraq invasion by the United States. That was a unipolar world. Now, the same playbook was used in this particular attack, liberation, weapons of mass destruction, same narratives. But I want you to consider something. The world today is split into two major powers. You have the Western power, which is the dominant power, and you have the rising global South. So these are the countries in Latin America, in Africa, India, includes China and Russia, by the way. They support the global South, and you have Pakistan, Iran as part of that as well. Now, what's important to keep in mind here is, if Iran was not even the current theocratic state that it is, would it be attacked in a similar fashion to what it was attacked last night and a few days before? I want you to consider something. Consider the answers yes under the following narrative. If Iran was a democratic secular state, which is what they claim they want to make it into, and they have their puppet Reza Shah as their secret weapon, as their secret plan, well, it's not so secret, would they still have attacked Iran and still try to replace the government? 1953, Operation Boot was launched by the British government alongside the Americans. They worked together, and the Americans, I think, called it Operation Ajax. And what they did is they overthrew the secular democratic government of Mohammad Mossadegh. Now, that 1953 coup you can go and look at, and you'll realize that actually it all had to do with oil. Now here, where does oil fit in? Because oil obviously fits in. Well, America's in conflict with the global South, in a not direct conflict, but in terms of they don't want a rising power like this. Now, who's a key part of the global South? Who's a key partner in making the world into a non-unipolar world? Well, it's Russia and China. And Russia and China have oil ties with Iran, especially China. It has around a $400 billion deal over 25 years with Iran, and that's going to be disrupted. So you have to understand, it's not just about what they're saying, weapons of mass destruction, liberation. It's got to do with oil. Let's not also forget Gaza. Gaza has been ignored in the media while this new conflict has started. So we have to keep in mind that Gaza, the citizens there have been bombed, displaced, massacred, and are being massacred when they're going out and just trying to get flour. So don't forget about what's happening in Gaza, because that's also a very important aspect of this conflict. I do believe they wanted to attack Iran anyway, but it's a very good time for them because they can actually distract people from what's been happening in Gaza, and maybe they're going to take some more actions against the Palestinians under the blanket of the current war. So we don't actually know what's happening in Gaza. It's very hard to actually figure out the details of what Israel's actually up to, but clearly there is a nefarious plan here. Now, if they are really successful in terms of what they want to do, if they manage to do what they did in 1953 and overthrow the regime there, the government there, what's going to basically happen? Well, you're going to have a Zionist client state in Iran, and between the Zionist client state and the state of Israel, you have all those countries that could be potentially parts of Greater Israel or allies of Greater Israel. They could be coerced into it, because currently the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Countries, and the Muslim world in general is against this war. Now, I want you to consider, they're against this war even though they are Sunni and Iran is Shia. The reason for this is because they're not just looking at it from the perspective of Sunni Shia or what happened with Iran in Syria and the death cults that they had and the massacres that they committed against the Syrians, the Iraqis, the Yemenis. No one denies that. So being anti-war doesn't mean being pro-Iranian government, because the Iranian government is evil. I believe the Iranian government is un-Islamic. I believe the Iranian government has done a lot of evil. But it doesn't mean if you're anti-war, you're pro-Iranian government. So these governments, these Muslim governments, are anti-war. They're anti-war. Why? They're anti-war because they understand the bigger picture. But the bigger picture involves the global south. The bigger picture involves the distraction in terms of Palestine. The bigger picture involves oil. And the bigger picture involves the world being set back to 2003 with the Iraq invasion and the chaos that ensued. I want you to also consider that in Iran, there are a lot of frictions. The government is not popular. The Baloch Sunni people, they are really unhappy and they've been oppressed. You have the Kurds, you have the Arabs, you have the Turks. You have a lot of frictions there. So if the regime was to collapse, you would get chaos in the region. You'd get chaos in Pakistani Balochistan. You'd get all these add-on effects. Now, what's really sad about this situation is not just the fact that a new war has started in the Middle East, but also a key partner in the global south, India. It's actually gone and sat with the West and is supposed to be part of the global south. So this is why some analysts have said that it has a disastrous foreign policy, because the global south is now divided. One of the major countries of the global south has not actually condemned the Israeli aggression against Iran. So we're living in very interesting times. I want you to look at the conflict from a international relations perspective, a bird's eye perspective. And remember, look, states ultimately, they want to do things to maximize their utility, to maximize their self-interest, to maximize what is beneficial for them economically, politically, or otherwise, in terms of their image or whatever. From that perspective, Trump is not only vested in this because of China, he's also vested in this because he wants to be that president that's winning. And I believe that this is why the conflict unfolded in the way that it did. I believe Trump was involved from the very beginning, but initially he wanted plausible deniability. So plan A was, if the plan was to be successful, Israel was to attack, then Trump can go in and attack and then claim victory, which is what he's going to try and do now. However, if Israel failed in taking out the Iranian defenses, then he could come in as the peacemaker, broker peace, and then he'd be, coming in with this cape and seen as the victor. So there is, the vested interests of the states who are at, war currently, but there's also personal interests at play as well. And in international relations, it's not just about the countries and what's in their interest, but also individuals as well. Netanyahu also has political ambitions, and those political ambitions have played into how fast this conflict has escalated. So there is a lot going on. On minimum, we should be anti-war. This is very important. We need to focus on Gaza. Gaza is the most important. Well, I said Gaza. Actually, it's actually Gaza and the West Bank, because there's a lot happening in the West Bank as well. A lot of people don't see. There's images, social media of what the settlers are doing. So we don't know where this conflict is going to lead. There's many different possibilities. Would Reza Shah, the son of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, would he be replaced as the new ruler of Iran? Is that going to happen? Is that likely? Are the Iranian people going to rise? We don't know. It's all up in the air at the moment. That seems like a very unlikely scenario. I think the regime will survive. But what will happen is there is going to be a lot of chaos if Iran ends up attacking US assets or Gulf assets, and then there ends up being a broader conflict with other states. Should the Muslim world welcome this massive intervention by the West? Because it is the West. The European Union is acting like the good cop. They're pretending like they're anti-war when they're not. America's acting like the bad cop, and Israel's acting like the worst cop. So we have to understand it is a Western aggression against Iran. And like I mentioned, even if Iran was secular and democratic, an attack on Iran could have taken place because of its links to China and the global south. So I hope in this video, inshallah, you've learned a lot about the bigger picture, about what's going on and why we need to be in tune with what's happening. Now, I've tried to understand this from many different angles, but I think the most important angle that I want to leave you with, and this is my last message, do not forget about the Palestinians. Do not forget about Gaza. Do not forget about the massacres. Do not forget about Israel's greater plans against the Palestinians, the Syrians, the Lebanese, and many other Muslims of that region. I hope you've learned a few things in this video, and I look forward to seeing your comments.